So you're looking for a new job, but you're not quite sure where to start. There just seems to be an overwhelming amount of options, and you're not quite sure what you need to do in order to best improve your chances of getting that new position. If you're new to the channel, my name is Tyler Warlow, and I make videos on things I wish I knew when I was younger. All these videos center around how to improve your life through your confidence, capabilities, and overall happiness. In today's video, I figured that I would talk a little bit about the top 5 things that I recommend doing whenever you are looking for a new job. I use these 5 items to help me land plenty of positions. I got an internship, a co-op, and a summer research position while in college, and I've gotten 2 different job positions since graduating. I felt like each of the steps that I'm about to go over were instrumental in helping me to land the roles that I wanted. If that sounds interesting to you, let's go ahead and jump into the video. The first thing that you're going to want to go ahead and do is update your experience everywhere and anywhere that you can. The first place that you should start is, of course, your resume. And whenever you're looking for specific positions, you're going to want to make sure that you update that resume to talk about relevant experience. Now, what do I mean by this? For example, let's say that you are looking to be an engineer and you're looking into manufacturing positions. You want to update your resume with the experiences that you've had in manufacturing positions. If you're looking for something that's more along the management route, you want to update your experience showing the skills that you have in managing people. The reason it's important to have the relevant experiences on your resume is because it's going to show how your skills are applicable to the positions that you are applying for. When you're putting together your resume, you're going to want to go ahead and put together strong action verbs as your bullet points. You want to put together nice, brief, and succinct summaries of each of the experiences that you have. Additionally, you're going to usually want to try and keep that resume down to about 1 page. You want to be able to convey your skills in a succinct and strong manner to the employer that you're trying to apply to. If you're starting to get really wordy and you start having a resume that's too long, that's when the employer is going to start thinking that you might be starting to fluff up your resume or putting on things that might not be super relevant to the position that you're applying for. And once you've got your resume updated, you're going to want to go ahead and update other areas that you might be searching for jobs for. So go ahead and update your relevant experience on things like LinkedIn, Glassdoor, or other job sites like that. The more up-to-date that you keep your relevant experience, the easier of a time that you're going to have when it comes to going after those new opportunities. Especially because it is much easier to update your experience as you are experiencing that, rather than trying to remember the things that you did later on. You can provide much stronger and more detailed summaries of your experiences when you update it relatively soon after something that you did, rather than trying to remember 2-3 years later, simply when you're looking for a new position. So make sure that you update your experience on all of the relevant platforms and make sure you have a strong resume. Once you've got that taken care of, the next thing that I want you to go ahead and do is define the situation that you are looking for. You need to ask yourself a few questions. Number 1, do you need a job ASAP, or is this something that you are able to take a little bit of extra time and be selective about? What are you looking for in this new position? Are you looking for better benefits? Are you looking for new responsibilities? Define that and have an understanding of what you want out of this new position. And finally, make sure you have a well-defined list of what you are and are not willing to do when it comes to accepting a new position. For example, there's a lot of positions out there that require a certain amount of travel, and depending on your situation, you might not be able to do that. For instance, someone who has a wife and kids and some pets is going to have a much harder time doing travel than someone who is single and young and doesn't really have ties to an area. So make sure that you have an understanding of what that is that you are and are not able to do, and be honest about that when it comes to interviewing. So touching back on that first question of whether or not you need the job ASAP or if you have some extra time, here's my recommendations. If you need something ASAP, try and get something that still somewhat aligns with your interests, but focus on getting a new position fairly quickly. Once you have that new position, try to get yourself established and get some good work done, but continue looking for jobs that truly align with your interests and what you want to work on. This might be a situation where you are just taking this job as a temporary stepping stone in order to help you get to the next thing. But don't make the mistake that a lot of people make where they just get comfortable and they stay in a job that they don't really like that much just because it's safe and it gives them the money that they need. Rather, you should continue to look for the things that interest you, and as soon as something becomes available, that's when you should jump on it and apply. The extra benefit of being proactive and keeping an eye out for these positions and potentially getting interviews is that you stay in practice for the job application process. This is going to help improve your chances a lot when it comes to potentially getting an interview. Now, if you're not in the situation where you need to find something ASAP, I highly recommend trying to be as selective as possible with the positions that you are going for. Do not just apply for anything and everything, because there's a much higher likelihood in that situation that you're going to end up doing a job that you really don't like that much. Try to focus on jobs or companies that really align with your interests and your values. For example, I used to work in the paper science industry, but a reason that I struggled with that a little bit was I didn't really feel like I was helping that many people. And that's why I transitioned over into pharma and biotech, because I felt like my work had meaning and I was providing helpful and valuable things to other people that could potentially save lives. And that helped to give my work some meaning, so even on the difficult days, I'm able to keep that kind of thing in mind. That's what I highly recommend you doing, is being selective and picking jobs and positions that align with your values and your personal mission. And going off of that a little bit is going to come to my next tip, and that's going to be to make a list of your top 10 companies. By making this list, you're going to help narrow your focus down to a few key companies. Once you have this list, I want you to take the time to thoroughly research the companies. Look into their financials, look into the potential projects that they've been working on, and thoroughly research things that you find interesting or ways that you think you might be able to help. Beyond researching the companies, make sure that you have a basic understanding of the type of role that you're applying for. For example, let's say that you're looking to get a manufacturing position as an engineer. You're going to want to do some research as to what the basic processes are for the industry and obtain an understanding of what's the upstream process, what's the downstream process, and be able to speak to that a little bit in case they ask you about it in the interview. But maybe you're interested in something more like marketing. Look into common marketing techniques as well as the techniques that you see the company you're interested in using. It's also good for you to obtain a basic understanding of the target audience of the company that you're interested in. That way, you can talk about relevant ideas and opinions when it comes to your interview process and not just be pulling stuff out of thin air when they ask you about it. By doing a little bit of research and having a basic understanding of whatever the role is that you're applying for, it's going to much more improve your chances of getting that role, because it's going to demonstrate to your employer that you've taken the time to actually learn some of this stuff before having the position itself. That shows that you have good initiative and that you're willing to take on a little bit of extra responsibility on your own outside of work itself. Once you've done some research and you have an understanding of the company and the type of role that you're interested in, I highly recommend that you network. And I cannot stress this enough. Networking has landed me 3 out of the 5 total positions that I've had since I've been in college. You'd be surprised at the difference that it can make, especially if you're someone who's trying to break into a new industry or you're just starting out. Some of my favorite ways to network are through job sites like LinkedIn, through job fairs, or even through industry events like conferences. All of these provide opportunities to talk to people who are already in the industry or might have positions similar to your own. Networking provides you several different opportunities. It provides you the opportunity to continue your research, like I already mentioned, and it allows you the opportunity to develop connections. Let's think about the research for a second. By getting a chance to talk to individuals that work at different companies, it gives you some unique insight to ask them about the challenges that they're currently experiencing or the projects that they're working on. This gives you the opportunity to think about those challenges or projects and think about how you might be able to contribute to the success of those projects or challenges. When it comes to developing the connections, this is incredibly important because Not only can this potentially lead to an opening at a company where they think of you and they recommend you applying, but they also might know someone else who is looking to fill a position and they can connect you with that person. Connecting with different people can be surprisingly beneficial, but it's important to go in with an open mind and don't go into making connections and networking with the sole intention of using people. You should be seeking to make connections from a genuine place and try to get to know the other person. These genuine connections are how you build trust and rapport with one another so that you can actually then utilize those connections later on. Most people aren't stupid enough to not realize when you are simply trying to use them to get a job or position. So it's important that you go into networking with an open mind and you actually try to get to know the people and don't just try to use them as a means to an end. All right, after all of that, I'm going to assume at this point that you might have applied to a few positions. And I'm going to assume that because you've done all this other networking and you've had a strong resume to put out there, that you've gotten an interview offer. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do, of course, is actually prepare for your interview. You'd be surprised how many people go into interviews without preparing at all, and if they had just done a little bit more preparation, it would have put them ahead of the next guy and they would have gotten the position. Through your networking and research, you should have obtained a pretty solid understanding of the company's challenges or projects, and like I said, you can develop potential solutions that you could offer within the interview. You also want to take the time to look up some pretty common interview questions and get a general idea and prepare some answers for those questions. In my opinion, it's best to not formally script out answers to this, because if someone asks you a question and you provide them a scripted answer, it doesn't sound natural and it doesn't sound genuine. So a lot of times people can think that you might just be faking the answer that you're giving. I generally like to go prepare a list of common questions and then put little bullet points of the talking points that I think would be useful in each of those questions. I recommend putting a few different talking points because you might use an answer for one question that you could have used for another question, but you want to try and diversify your answers a little bit and avoid using the same situations and same stories too often. You're also going to want to develop a list of your own questions that you're genuinely curious about. That could really be anything as long as they're pretty solid questions. You could ask things like about how the culture is, if there's room for upward movement, if you have the opportunity to shift into other departments based on your interests, things along those lines. You can also prepare questions that are more technical focused because this can be a good way to demonstrate your knowledge and your interest to learn more about the projects that your interview panel might be working on. And the final thing that I'll tell you in terms of preparing for your interview is take a little bit of time to develop your elevator pitch. This is going to be a 5-minute pitch about who you are, what you're looking for, and why you are a good hire for the company. A lot of times interviews start off with the interviewer saying, "Tell me about yourself." And by giving them a strong and succinct answer about who you are, what you're looking for, how you can help the company, this is going to demonstrate to the company that you're very good at your communication and that you might have a strong skill set for the job. I highly recommend putting this together for yourself first and then running it by some friends or family so that they can give you some feedback as to how good it sounds and whether or not they would hire you in those situations. All right, and now that you have finished your interview, what you're going to want to do is follow up on the interview. I recommend taking down the names of the people that interviewed you as well as their emails, and pay attention during the interview process for any personal details that they might throw in, like hobbies or things about their family. Then you can follow up on the interview and thank them for their time that they took out of their day to interview you. Touch base on some of those talking points that you talked about in the interview that you found interesting, and also sprinkle in a little bit of those personal details that I recommended noting. You'd be surprised, but this can actually set you apart from other candidates if you're taking the time to follow up and thank people for their interview. This was actually what won me the position for my first internship. I was the only person who actually reached out and followed up on my interview with the things that I was interested in and the things that I learned about the interviewers in my interview process. Later on, they told me themselves that this is what set me apart and was important to the role that I was going into, because the role that I was going into needed someone who was personable and would take that initiative to do something like that. So I highly recommend reaching out and following up after an interview, just thanking them for their time. But that's going to bring us to the end of today's video, y'all. I hope that you found the information in today's video to be helpful or informative. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to join me along in this self-improvement journey. If you're interested in more videos like this one where I talk about career-related topics, be sure to check out this video right here where I talk about the steps that I took to change industries. If you're more interested in more of my most recent stuff, be sure to check out this video right here. But until the next time, this is Tyler Warlow, signing off.